Hello again, everybody. This is Dan Clouser, and welcome back to the Journey of My Mother's Son podcast. Today I'm joined with Ebony McNeil, who has just started an organization called The Forge. Just to give you a little background before I turn it over to Ebony here. He and I know each other from back when I used to be with the Big Vision Foundation, and he used to be with Riverfront Federal Credit Union, and they were a big supporter of ours. And he and I, on one of the hottest days in, I think it was 2018, loaded up probably 40 or 50 cases of Gatorade from his bank branch into my pickup truck. And we had the sweat to show for it. We could have used a Gatorade after that. And since that time, we just connected on Facebook and have stayed in touch. And a few months ago, I saw a post that you had put up talking about the Forge, and it really intrigued me. And I reached out to you and said, hey, let's do a podcast and talk about this. I think it's something more people need to know about. So after a couple months and getting scheduled, we are here today to talk with Ebony about his organization, The Forge. Ebony, first of all, give a little bit of your personal background, and then what inspired you to start The Forge, and what the vision is for it.
Okay, my name is Ebony McNeil, as you said. Personal background, 46 years old, living in Reading, Pennsylvania, husband and father of 4 sons, beautiful family, very active in both sports, education, our church, the community, things like that. Basically, the reason I started The Forge, I'm also, branch manager at Belco Federal Credit Union. I've been in banking for about 20 plus years, so it just evolved into this role. The reason I started The Forge was, during some rough times in the past few years, personal things, it just really made me reflect on my decision-making, on my male friendships, on even my faith, things of that nature. And I really started paying attention to decisions I was making, whether it be right or wrong, and decisions of friends of mine were making, and started paying attention to what a man needs to grow into. And I say a man versus a male because male's pretty much based off of your physical genitalia, your physical genes, whatever the case would be. As a man is more about evolution and more about matriculation into what's manhood, because you can be a older boy or an older male and not really be what society, not even society, because I want to address that too, but what is an actual man. So as I reflected on this and researched, I realized there's some certain things that men needed for us to get back on our game. We've lost our game a little bit, and through some fault of our own. And things such as, there's, things that men need to see to get back to being the leaders in their community, the leaders in their home, the leader in their churches, leaders at their job. And I don't mean leader that has anything to do with a title or your income. It's just asserting yourself in a way that others respect and others want to follow, and that you are willing to step up as your and take control of your situation, and more importantly, influence those around you to want to be better. To me, that's what a man does, that people can see and recognize you when you walk in a room as someone that has some level of authority, respect, influence, and something they should pay attention to. That, again, they don't need to follow you in that way, but something that all young men should aspire to be. I noticed that we needed a few things to bring this back into prominence. Things such as the Forge focuses on 3 main pillars. First one is positive imagery. We focus on this because we want to make sure we are combating what society, and especially, unfortunately, social media portrays as man. It's very toxic. It's very extreme. You can't have any flaws. You can't share your feelings. You can't show feelings. It's very much old school thinking of, as a man, you got to suck it up. You got to be tough, things like that. Also, even the way they are portrayed, either violent or angry, or you have to be in this great shape. or the other extreme where you can't balance it. So positive imagery is a big thing. We're about showing that there's men, and I mean men who look like every race, creed, color, demographic, financial background, everything, that are actually good men and are doing the right thing and do look like you. And you're not alone in this. And we have to put those positive images out to combat all the negative you see on media, social media, and in society as a whole. The second level is fellowship. One thing that really hit me during my rough times is the need for fellowship. You know, men need other men. Women cultivate relationships way better than we do. You know, there's always most women can say, I have a group of girlfriends. We have our girls' nights. They talk to each other on a more consistent basis and they're willing to share. Men, we don't do that. Whether it's based off the fact of always worrying about our duties as a man, whether it be in the home, at work, physical duties we have to do, things like that seem to take prevalence. And then as we don't cultivate relationships, because other than our wife and kids, the friend relationship seems to drift down the list of priorities. And you need that in order to grow. And I don't mean friends just as a wingman going out in the club, or let's just go watch a game and get some wings. I'm talking about friendships where you bear your shoulder, they bear theirs back. You learn from each other, you grow. You process your emotions together, and there is your support system, and actually help you make the right decision versus the wrong one. And lastly, we focus on serving. You know, as I believe men are we want to be leaders in our community and in our homes, and to be a leader, you have to be willing to serve. So one thing we try to do is create opportunities for men to serve their communities, because there's no feeling better than that. Even if you're not the type to initiate on your own, once you do it, it's an addictive feeling. And we want to help create those avenues for men to come serve, because if they're serving, they're gradually becoming a leader, and coupled with the other two pillars will create just a better man as they re-enter society.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to dig down a little bit more into that third pillar right now on the service part, because really that's what connected you and I in the first place. Is, you know, you were doing service to a local nonprofit organization, which I happened to be running at the time. And, you know, community service and volunteering is something that's, you know, near and dear to my heart, being in the nonprofit world for 30 years. And even now when my wife and I are traveling, it's something that's very near and dear to our hearts. So, you know, tell me a little bit as to why, you know, what was the impetus behind making that one of the three pillars, why service was so important?
Well, it couples back to, you know, I believe the best leadership is servant leadership. You know, it's a phrase that's been coined, but I believe in it very strongly. You can't really lead if you're not willing to serve. And to me, in any role of leadership, your job is technically removing obstacles and serving those who work for you. They're not there to serve you. Your job is to help them perform at their job and help them grow. That's being of service. So, and that's in every aspect of life. So we wanted to make that very important, because as the men we want to affect are all different demographics. Some are financially well established, and there's also men that we've already affected that are of very little means. But as you serve, even with the little means, as you serve, you develop a level of leadership. You also develop a level of appreciation. You also start to feel better about yourself as you give to others, and that will help you grow as a person. And I believe that it's necessary. But I also believe that there's plenty of men out there who know that serving is the right thing to do, but it's always not as available or as readily visible as needed to be. So, or they don't know who to ask, they don't know how to ask, or they're tired, or they don't have any friends that do it. So the Forge, one thing we wanted to do is provide that avenue. And we wanted to make sure that as we grow, we develop more and more opportunities. And as we reach more men, those men then become sort of like our army that we can take. Say somebody in the community needs some serious help. There's an area that needs to be cleaned up, a home that needs to be fixed. We can take a multitude of men under the Forge name and go. And those same men now are growing. At the same time, they're fellowshipping. And at the same time, it will be the imagery of that will bring in more men, which then creates the same cycle. So to really affect change, you have to serve. You can't just talk about it, you got to do it.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I love that concept. So how was there one incident in your life that, you know, made you decide to start this and understand that there were other men that needed this as well? Or was it a culmination of a couple different things that happened?
It was a culmination for sure. It was, and then it took some reflection after these events and made me put the whole picture together. So, you know, everybody goes through tough times. There were some tough times I went through. And one of the few things that kept me grounded, one was my faith. The other one was talking to my best friend and him giving me advice and him explaining to me things he had went through, which then allowed me to not make the wrong decision on my end. That was part of it. Then I started to reflect back, and my dad loved me. I knew he loved me, but he wasn't very open with his feelings, the way he was raised, the times he was raised in. You know, he might have told me love me maybe 3 times, those actual words. I never doubted it. I never felt less than that. But when I would think back, he never really expressed it in the way I would like it expressed. So I realized how important that kind of support is. Then lastly, you know, when this started to take shape and I realized there's other men who have this problem, I would constantly fall into that conversation with other men of, man, you know, I'm glad you came over. This was so much fun. We need to do this more. I don't go out with my friends. I don't do things with my friends. But their wives gone. Oh, she's out with her girls. Or she's here. She's there. And they're doing girls' trips. The guys, we talk about it, but it just had never happened. And it wasn't just me. It was even me and my best friend. There's times we won't see each other for 2-3 months, other than maybe lunch across the street at work. I've heard that quite a few times, and from quite a few gentlemen who I was shocked that that was the case. I thought they were always had these relationships, always had this camaraderie with other men, and to find out almost none of us did. And I realized how important that was. And then lastly, you know, God, when I wanted to start this, because I started to realize these needs, I was trying to formulate it for years. And maybe we're in August now. So I'd say maybe beginning mid 2020, the real idea of it being the Forge came about, and figuring out the 3 platforms I wanted to focus on, figuring out what it could do and how many men could benefit. And, you know, I just prayed on it a lot and thought about it a lot. And then God kept throwing me hints through other channels. This is what you meant to do. People who didn't know each other, had no clue of each other existed, would give me, say, you know, you would be really good at starting that. Or, hey, people listening when you're talking, go talk to them. Hey, you have an ability to lead men even when you're not trying. So it was just a culmination of all these things. And then it just came to a point where I had no choice but to do it. And on January 2nd of 2021, I waited till January 2nd because 2021's January 1st are going to be all about New Year's. So I waited till January 2nd, and I sat there and off the top of my head, gave a post about what I wanted to do. And the post took off, was shared more times than I've had anything else shared. And it grew from there. And I just ran with it, and it's doing what I'd like it to do right now.
That's awesome. I love it. So after you did the initial post, you said a lot of people shared it, and a lot of people got on board. How did it just continue to all come together from that point on? Like, how, you know, were people just randomly reaching out to you to get involved? You know, how did it get to where it's at today?
That it actually did that. People started reaching out, and it's one of those things. I said I wanted to do it. I knew how I was going to do it, but I wasn't 100% sure, obviously. But I also, you know, I listen to motivational speakers and pastors all the time, and one thing that I've always latched onto is just start. If you try to wait and figure every detail out, you'll never get started. You'll be looking up 6 months from now saying what you're going to do. So I didn't. I just decided, you know what, put it out there, and start doing it and be willing to put in the work. And if I really believed in it the way I did, I would figure it out. So I put it out, got a lot of shares. And the funny part is it was pretty much a call to men. Hey guys, let's get together. Let's make this happen. As you know what I mean, it's all men. We all need this. We should all admit we need this. Let's get together. A lot of the shares were women. And I believe that's because of what I was saying. Like, even they recognize the power a good man has, the power that a man who honors his family, honors his faith, and is willing to stand up as a man really does have an impact even on them. So they were sharing it. Oh, I'm sending my sons. Oh, I'm sending my men. Let us know what you want to do. And it took off from there. And, we started off with a service event. And the first event I did, like I said, about image, was focused on imagery and service together. And it was a professional men's clothing wear drive. And what I did is I said, I'm collecting professional men's clothing, shirts, ties, pants, khakis, blazers, shoes, everything that you would wear for anything such as court, you might have to wear for a job interview. You might just want to change your image that you've had in the past, but you don't have the means to have the clothing to go to these type of events. And I put it out, and the response was actually, if I'm being honest with you, overwhelming. My basement, we have a finished basement, and we couldn't use it for about 4 months because it looked like a department store. There were so many donations. It was crazy. I put boxes at a few barbershops, collection boxes, and had plenty of people just calling me, people that I didn't even know, that I didn't even know knew what the Forge was, contacted me. I'm like, hey, we see what you're doing. Can we meet? And I would pull up, and they would load the back of my van up with clothing. And I took it, I sorted it, and I reached out to some organizations that I know help men get back on their feet. BCPS, BCAT, Hope Rescue Mission. And I explained to them what I was collecting for. They actually blessed me with lists of men who were either completing programs or who just wanted to get back into society. They sent me those men's names, shirts, coats, pants, shoe sizes. I literally got my team together in my basement. We pieced together actual suits or blazer pants combinations for all these gentlemen. And then we went out, delivered it to them. And some of them, like, we have posts where gentlemen actually wore it and got the job, who had never had a professional job before. There were men who had to go, maybe they were reestablishing connection with their children and went to court for child support. And because they could dress the part and act the part, they then felt the part, and they had a better experience at court. It's all about just men realizing they have a past and making the right decisions. And I just want to help. And that clothing drive, I think, really set in motion everything else we did. And the next big thing we did was we were blessed by one of the men on my board had a close relationship with a pharmacy in West Reading. And the pharmacy's main clientele was an older clientele and people who lived in nursing homes. So the government started supplying him with vaccinations for them. And prior to anybody else really being able to get these vaccinations, they started giving him surplus. He reached out, said, I like what you guys are doing. I know you will get these out to the right people. So we had 3 vaccination clinics, inner city Reading, prior to almost anybody else having it. There's a few places, but no place, like, they have all these vaccination locations now. We had it before they had any of those open. And we worked with the Olivet's Boys and Girls Club, and we actually had a 100-person vaccination. That went well. So then they gave us 200 more doses. And then they blessed us with over 500 doses of the vaccination. And this is before you could readily get it. And we actually, my team and I set up, worked with the Olivet's. We had a very streamlined organization, and we delivered, like I said, over 800 vaccinations. And through that, being on social media, our logo being on our shirts every time we went, it took off from there.
That's awesome. I love that. Let's talk a little bit about the emotional side of it. you talked about, I think one of the things as males is, a lot of times it's difficult for us to show our vulnerability. As you've had these groups, truly, the truth of the matter is being vulnerable is really a sign of strength. How has it been to be able to really get that message out to these guys that are joining the Forge, that, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to show your feelings. It's okay to, let people know that you're not okay sometimes. How's the response been to that?
It's been awesome, actually. Well, when I first put out the post and my team was created, we all sat and talked individually and as a group and recognized how important being vulnerable is. And we've all been through certain things on different levels that made us understand how important emotions and being vulnerable really are. And like you said, I believe at 100% that as you are vulnerable, the stronger you become. And I believe it takes a strength to be vulnerable, because when you are vulnerable, you are secure enough to not worry about the repercussions. And I think that's where us as men struggle, because either through society or even our relationships with family or friends, we're taught that being vulnerable isn't good, suck it up, go through it. But then also, we also have seen in society where being vulnerable is considered being weak, or you're putting yourself in a position for somebody to ridicule you or use your past or your feelings now against you. To me, true strength is being able to say, yep, I did that. Yep, I cried. Yep, I messed up, whatever the case may be. But then now I've learned from that. I own that, and I'm going forward even better. And whatever you say to me about my mistakes, guess what? They don't define me going forward. And that's where I think true strength lies. And that's why it's so important. And I try to, in our meeting, the first meeting we did was great because we used a exercise called the man box, and we threw out characteristics of manhood and we discussed them. And it was really cool to see men admitting weaknesses or admitting how they handled certain things incorrectly in the past, and being vulnerable with that and showing how they're going to move better in the future.
Yeah, I think that's so important, and I love that. I love what you're doing. I think it's something that's really needed, and I think it's going to go a long way for sure. So we're just about out of time, and as I had given you a heads up on, I always ask my guests one final question, and the subtitle of the podcast is Many Little People in Many Little Places, which comes from a song by a gentleman by the name of Michael Franti, where the opening lyrics of his song Gloria go, when many little people in many little places do many little things and the whole world changes. So what's one of the little things that Ebony McNeil's doing every day to help make the world a better place?
Honestly, it is working on being a better me. And let me explain that. I believe in the ripple effect big time. So if I'm not working on being a better me, I can't translate that out, because the Forge can be great on paper, but if I haven't really bettered myself or learned things to translate out, it's never going to work. So me bettering myself produces better sons that I have. I have 4 boys. I want them to go out and impact the world. I want them to be the best people they can be. Me being better affects my wife, letting her know she has support and having a husband she can be proud of. And then once you step outside of them, it affects the Forge. And if I can be better and be vulnerable and learn more about even how I handle things, I can then translate it to these men. So if I affect 5 men one week, they affect their whole spheres of influence as well. And then if they bring in someone else, now we're affecting the influence of 10 people. So it just gradually spreads. So every day I try to be better because I want to pay it forward to someone else. That's the one thing I do. I mean, I try to do several things, but the one thing I always try to do is learn something new every day, more about myself and how I'm doing things right or wrong, so I can translate it to others and help them grow.
I love that. That's an awesome answer. So if any of my listeners want to get involved with the Forge, is there a website? How would they get a hold of you? How would they get involved?
Okay, well, you can find me right now on Facebook and Instagram at the @ symbol, The Forge Forum, TheForgeForum. That's for Instagram and for Facebook. I have an email. We have an email box right now that's getting pretty good and quite heavily trafficked. It is theforge2021@gmail.com. We have a website that's under construction. Most of our business right now is through word of mouth and through social media. As we grow on each platform, we're going to I'll keep everybody posted.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I love the concept. Hopefully the podcast here will drum up some interest for it. Sounds like you guys are already off to a running start, and that this is going to really be an awesome movement going forward. So any last things you want to add before we sign off here?
No, just wanted to say thank you so much for your time, and thank you for believing in what the Forge is trying to do. And if anybody's interested and just want to meet men who are like-minded and are all trying to get better, please reach out to us. Again, theforge2021@gmail.com is my email, or you can contact me directly through social media at the Forge Forum. And hope to hear from you, and it's something that everybody can benefit from, because if the man gets better, everything in his sphere will get stronger.
That's awesome. Ebony, thanks again. I appreciate your time. For my listeners out there, again, check out my other blogs and podcasts at danclouser.com. Thanks again, Ebony. Appreciate your time and appreciate what you're doing in the community.
All right. Thanks for your time. Thank you so much.